Welcome everybody to the March 28th architecture meeting. Let me drop the link in the chat. And let me share my screen. It's amazing how Zoom can just take over and be in the wrong place every single time. So today I'd like to talk about some of our reporting requirements. And when I talk about reporting, this will be also some of the things that Elizabeth brought up, like in the summary graphs and some of the UI aspects that we have. So based on our last meeting, we have basically the list of the information that we're collecting and some of the things that we need to collect at that level. So one of the things, and this kind of comes into some of the DORA metrics as well, we kind of have an overlap with that. But one of the things we should be listing, let's take, for example, a license file or a README file. On that case, it's going to be like present or not present. So that's pretty easy. It's a yes or no that it's going to be that this component has a README file, for example. Now, when we aggregate up to the application level, that's where it starts getting interesting, because at that level, we can aggregate up. Let's say we have 15 components that belong to the application, and that we have a README file for 8 out of 10. So that gives us a good score, a way to calculate a percentage. So we go from a Boolean yes, no type of scenario into now calculating a percentage. Now that same percentage can be calculated at the organization level. So our personas that we have, we can break it down for those folks to see for the README file. When I look at the OpenSSF org, I'm looking at it from an organizational level, that I know all the projects or the components that are underneath my org. We have 50% of them have a README file defined. So the different slices of the data at that level. So I think what we want to take a look at is some of the metrics that we can derive based on that. So, for example, we'll just start with the README usage. So at the README usage, we can see it's true, false at the component level. And then aggregation at the application domain, and what else? I can't remember the other persona that we used to call it. Let's say risk level or security level. The aggregation allows us to have a type today. Does that make sense? How we're able to get an aggregation, a percentage out of the when we do the aggregation? Thumbs up on that. Cool. All right. So one of the things that Elizabeth showed us is that radar graph. So these are radar graphs. There we go. So in the radar graph, you get to map out multiple values and then kind of see how much area that you cover. So for example, if we go back to our list, some of the things that we could kind of group together in that radar graph would be like these first couple rows. So, like, is there a license file? You know, they're answering the yes no question. Is there a license file? Is there a README? Is there owners? Is maintainer? Is there governance doc? And when we do that, we can then map those percentages over on top of the radar graph. One of the things, if we look at a more complicated one, is when we start getting more values that we want to map out, the more complicated the radar graph becomes. So for me, if we get into, you know, we could probably come up with like 20 different things that we can get a percentage off of, especially when we look at, if we go down to, so we have how many here at the top? One, two, we have about 8 there. If we go down to the OpenSSF scorecard, there's another 15 there. So we have like 23 to 25, a couple dozen yes, no percentages that we can get into. That I don't know if we get 27 things around the radar graph that it'll make sense. So I think what we'll need to do is kind of group them together. So that it looks like this one is 5. If we can keep it under 6, I think it'll make the graphs meaningful. And maybe we take and group things together that make sense. So if we go back up to the yes/no stuff, the license file, the README, the owner file, the maintainer's file, the security file are all kind of handled at the individual repo level. So I would say that we group those together as one radar graph or one way that we can calculate the percentages. And then other things like the CLA, the governance contributor doc, the code of conduct is on another graph. So we group those together. Does that make sense?
So can I
How
ask
to
you a
approach
question?
it? Yeah.
So what is it, like a general graph? And then what do you can go to another page or whatever it might be for a more specific graph on a specific component.
I think we would have 2 graphs side by side. So we would have like lack of a better word, be like a repository health graph. And then the
Okay.
other one would be like a governance graph or you know, something like that. So we'd have 2 graphs side by side um, laying out the results.
Okay. So there wouldn't be like an overarching graph that has and everything, right? It would be like I'm trying to Make sense of this thing. So
Yeah,
if it's a repository radar graph, could you do you put like a scoring on there or what?
yeah. So on the repository, so if we're going to roll up to the application version, the domain level, or a higher level security profile level, we'll be able to aggregate. Let's take an application version, and underneath that you have your 10 components, right? And because we have 10 components, we can find out how many of those components have a README. So we have 8 out of the 10 components are going to have a README. And what that translates to is an 8 out of a 10. So let me make my screen bigger so you can see it.
I see what you're saying. So it's a score
So
out of 10.
yeah. So like in here, let me see if I visit this page, if it let me zoom in on it. There it is. So
So could you not have a big overview with a score out of 10 for your big, is that what you're saying? For your big, I don't know, for your 50-foot view.
yeah, I don't think we could because we have too many data points.
Oh, okay.
So we have 25 different data points. I guess we could figure out like a weighted method to give you an overall score.
I'm going to put an example in the channel now.
And that is one of the things that the let's see here. Are you putting it in Discord or in chat?
Now I'll put it in this for everybody. So check what these guys, I just wanted to share this with, see what everyone thought about this. This is what these guys did to show their tech stack and their language and their platform all on one page.
All right. Where are you at? This Discord? Oh, there it is.
Now I stuck it in,
Yeah, I got it now.
I'd be interested to hear what everyone here thinks.
Oh yeah.
I thought this was pretty cool. You see how they broke it up quite nicely, like into languages and frameworks, tools, techniques and patterns and platforms.
Yeah. Well, that would be kind of the high level grouping, and then they have a subgrouping underneath each one of them.
Yeah, yeah, and you can go in there.
So
And I,
in our
yeah,
world, we would go through the high level grouping of, like I said, take the license file, the README owners, and kind of group that information together in one grouping, governance and contributor stuff in another grouping. And then if you look at some of the other things like signing, you could have a
so,
signing group,
so,
whether an artifact is signed, a SBOM sign.
so
That's,
if you did have a 50-foot view, sorry, Steve, like
yeah.
say there's a huge, a parent topic called governance, then you could then you could click on governance and then go in deeper and it would list all the things that fall under governance. Is that what you're thinking?
Right now, it doesn't look like these have drill downs associated to them.
No, no, they don't. I was just asking, like, do you think is a drill down a good way of doing it? Like, I'm sure do you have your topics, your parent topics like governance, I don't know, security, I don't know, and then you could click on that and drill in, and then the radar would change to, I don't know, the topics for that specific, the children of that parent topic.
I think the drill downs would be
Or
too
do they
hard.
not too hard? Okay.
I think, especially if you're looking at if we were able to generate something like this or generate this as part of a PDF that people
Okay.
can distribute around, I think
Okay.
it would make more sense to have multiple charts for each
Yeah.
grouping.
Okay.
Kind of like how you Elizabeth laid out on her preview of the
Yeah.
different
Yeah.
boxes.
Yeah. And if
And this
the
one is the other. Go ahead.
could the overarching, like the 50-foot view, take you to another to another chart? Then is that an idea? I'm just asking
I
questions
don't.
because I don't know much about this.
Yeah, I don't know if we want to get into that granular detail in
Okay,
a.
it's too detailed.
I think so. I think
Okay.
if Kate were here, she'd say yes. I want to love driving down into all the gory details.
All the rabbit holes.
Um, but I don't think we. I think we want to start off simple and not make it look like a nuclear power plant.
Yeah, no, I totally what you mean. Or like a SimCity creation
Yeah,
computer game.
yeah,
Yeah,
and like Elizabeth said, this is another view. It's the tree. What is it called? The tree map view.
yeah,
Also,
that's
there's
cool.
the heat map view.
Yeah,
You can break things down in that way as well. I mean, she's dropping in another one here. Yeah, this one shows the relationships, the
okay.
sand key. But when you look at these, they really get into how things are related. So it's kind of
Mm,
giving you that flow from one to another. When we're talking about percentages, I don't think this works well when we're talking about the numerics. This would be good for another report would be, for example, I want to show the most popular um, package being consumed by all my components and applications.
we could
So
do
let's
a
say, so like on
what
this
about
one, the
uh,
green, it's giving
yeah,
its weird float over. Let's see if I click on it. It's okay. So on this side, where it says node 4, this could be like log4j. And then
yeah,
you can have application, Ortelius could be node 1, Kubernetes could be node, this other node. And that they then consume a middleware package, and then that consumes log4j, for example. So this one would be a good to show the number of people, like the most popular packages. So that's another good one for showing those type of relationships.
I had a I had a mad idea about having a Google Maps Street View kind of idea. Because, like, like if you want to find my house, you would go to South Africa, then you would scroll the globe to Cape Town, and then you would go into Cape Town, then you'd look for Noordhoek, and so you would zoom in until you're standing outside my house.
Well, that one is interesting. We don't have that on our data collection here, and where that would come into play, and it doesn't I have to add it here, is a CVE. So when you look at a CVE will be in the MITRE mapping. A CVE will be exploited by a certain what they call a group, or let me look what it is. Yeah, I think it is called a group. Yeah, a group or a campaign. So if you look at a group will be a certain. Let's take this dragon one here. This one is from a Chinese cyber espionage group. So based on this, we could actually do the geographical one that you're talking about and map out that when you you have your software, it has these CVEs in it, and these CVEs are being exploited by this certain group in the world. So you could actually show your software running in LA, in
Yeah.
a Google data center in LA that has
Yes.
a potential of being exploited by a Chinese or Russian group. So
Yeah,
you
that would be
could do
quite
that
cool.
map thing like you're talking about.
That would be quite cool, eh? I don't know what's involved in doing that. It was probably quite heavy.
Not too bad. We actually are so one of the things that we have is we're going to be mapping CVEs to techniques, and then once
Yeah.
you have the techniques, you can map to the mitigations and stuff like that. So there is a way to follow the data to a particular group.
Yeah. So you could trace as you would say in the banking industry, track the money, but
Yeah,
now you're tracking the CVE, right?
yeah,
Yeah. Just the blockchain is not anonymous.
yeah. So like here's like the Fox Kitten group. They like to
Yeah.
use these techniques, and we know based on the CVE which techniques they are. So we can
Yeah.
actually we have that link to get to the group that could exploit your CVE.
Yeah. China Chopper. Jeepers. Sounds like a bad kung fu movie.
And I've never I don't know what software is. I'd have to look at what they mean by software.
Web show hosted.
Um, it's a web shell hosted on web servers.
Oh wow.
So if you install
It,
this web shell that they can get in
like
into your
remote.
system, yeah, it's
Yeah.
basically like a Trojan horse type of thing.
Yeah. Opens up ports or whatever for you.
Yeah, but yes, that what you're describing is possible.
Okay.
Let's look at the other data that we have. Some of these, like when we look at the scorecard stuff, uh, like a pin dependency CIC, they give us like an 8 out of 10 score.
Mm.
Um, so on that level, we'll be able to show the mapping at the component level, but then we can also do some aggregation to say here is your average score for pin dependencies for all of your components that you're consuming. Here's also at that level, you can also figure out of my 10 components that my application is using, only 5 of them have implemented scorecard in their workflow. So we could do that type of metrics as well.
So
And I think that's
basically, okay. Sorry. So all these things would be scored, right? And then you, as the user, you would know where you need to focus your attention, right?
yeah. And I think that's the goal of the reports is to bring attention to where you need to put your resources to.
Yeah. So highest to lowest.
Yeah.
Where you're doing well and where you're not doing so well.
And I think it comes in 2 levels. One level is, am I collecting the data? So am I actually collecting the data? And then the second level is, now that I'm collecting the data, how well am I doing?
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
Because
Are you
first
getting
thing,
healthier or are you getting unhealthier?
yeah.
Do I
Well, and
need
that
medical
brings up,
insurance
and that
or
does
not?
bring up because we record all this per time, we
Yeah.
can do comparisons or trends. We could do trend graphs on those how well we're improving.
Check what Elizabeth just posted. That's pretty
Yeah,
cool.
let me pick up this one.
Oh, GIS API for Python. Damn.
I've not seen this one.
Jeepers, that is so cool.
There is one thing like if we use this type of graph, we have to like write a lot of documentation also.
We're going to leave all the documentation up to you, Arvin.
Yes,
Oh, here's your
I
3D
can
Arvin,
I can
mode.
tell them. I can tell them that if you like know Spider-Man, then you can understand it better. Otherwise, go and watch that movie first.
the easiest way to get documentation done, just put a bounty on
And I think,
it. Financial motivation.
yeah.
Yeah.
I don't want to do this. Yeah, it's $5, $10. So many ones.
The other one we could, if you look at like where is it? Like the Google, if you look like the Google search engine, it'll highlight countries. We'll see you later, Tony.
Hi, Tony. We miss you.
It'll highlight countries that are like your searches are coming from. So it'll say like 80% of your you have 5,000 searches coming from North America. You have 2,000 coming from India, and you have 50 coming from Russia. Those type of areas, and they just highlight the country as well. And we could do something like that with that MITRE data to highlight the countries where the attacks could be coming from. So, like I was saying, one of the things, because we record all this data historically, we can also then do trend graphs to see how things are improving over time. I have not looked at trend graphs lately.
Is it like I put in one of those threat maps? I love looking at them. It looks like a computer game. But it's real life, which is crazy. You think. Like this conspiracy cyber map. You see, there's nothing going on in South Africa, and there's nothing of value here.
I'm trying to figure out what this one is.
I believe a Splunk
Like,
used to do that a few couple of years ago.
oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it's quite cool. I don't know how valuable it is, like, but I really like it.
It's very colorful, but I just don't get
Yeah,
what it's telling
yeah,
me.
yeah. It's a bit like a trans body
Yeah,
on your
I
web
think
page on your screen.
GitHub also implemented something like that, and I think they use WebGL and 3ds.
Oh, okay. I'd like
But that,
zoom in here and go,
yeah, but it requires a lot of front end and like animation skills.
yo, India's an hot topic, eh? Also, North America, you guys are under attack, eh? Sure. It's very quiet by me. I think they've taken everything already.
Or you have nothing. Yeah, you have nothing left to take.
Yeah, it's nothing.
They have full access to everything there.
Full access, yeah. Admin rights. Sorry, I'm
Let's look
derailing
at
you. Sorry.
trend graphs. Okay. Anybody have a trend
Alvin,
graph that they like?
Alvin, stop hacking, eh? You're creating all this noise here on the networks.
What? Can you repeat?
Looks like India's very
Trend
busy with the
graphs.
hacking, yeah, train graphs.
So here's the histogram.
Oh, that's
And
quite cool.
again, we could lay these out because we know things over time. We could instead of trying to layer like this one has layered on top of it multiple things, multiple entities that are being trying to be displayed at the same time. I think it ends up being easier when you have the separate graphs. I think it's easier to focus on.
I agree. It's like microservicing your visuals. So you're breaking it down into little components. It's much better now. I totally agree. Otherwise, it's just this eye candy that looks fantastic. Like you should be on a t-shirt, but no one's really going to do anything about it.
Yeah, now something like this could work, where it has this one's annoying. But again, you get into these, it ends up being a lot of, I mean, they're colorful and they're pretty, but it's hard to use the data with.
For the business people, you could have, you have some sort of diagram, whatever you choose, and then next to it you can have how much, if you patch this, how much it'll save you. If you patch this.
Well, that is interesting, because that would be one of our.
Can you do that? Could you do that? Could you do that in some way? Show this the estimated cost or something of this type of breach based on historical data.
Yeah, we've talked about that before, figuring out the cost of something. So we've talked about how, and Kate and Tony have told us some other groups that have some methodologies in place to figure out the cost if you don't fix it and the cost to fix it.
Yeah.
So based on those two things, you could actually, do your cost of justification.
Yeah.
Let's see.
It's quite a hard thing to show, hey, that type of cost. And where would you call that data from? Is there a central place? Is it MITRE the place for that or not?
You'd have to input it.
So could companies set that themselves? So for example,
you'd have to have it set up.
Like for example, United, what was that? United Medical Insurance that got hacked. So it cost them. So their cost for not having something patched cost them $22 million, right?
Yep.
So that big number could be based on the size of the company and the amount of. I'm just really talking out loud here. I'm really not an expert at this. So if I sound stupid, just someone jump in. But the company size they are, right? They would be ranked against other companies of a similar size. Is that how you could do it? Based on revenue or I don't know.
Yeah, I think you'd have to actually go in and.
Or would you leave that to the company that's using Ortelius to fill that stuff in to get an more accurate? Maybe that's too deep. Yeah. Yeah,
that's the hard part, where you'd have to record, what things cost, and then be able to make the association in some way to the fix. So let's say you have a CVE, and the CVE has a mitigation which you enable a firewall. So the CVE to enable now we assign a cost to a firewall rule. Let's say it's $10,000 for somebody to go implement the firewall rule around the whole organization. So that if they implement that mitigation, it's going to cost you $10,000. Now, for the developer to make the change in their code not to use that and roll that out to every single application in the whole organization, it's going to cost, let's say, $3,000 per application. And you have 30 applications, you know what I mean? Your cost is now 30 grand versus 10 grand to do the firewall rule.
Yeah. It's a no-brainer then.
So what do you think about this one with the, so we had the histogram one a little earlier with the bar charts going across time. What do you think
I like
about
that. Yeah.
the multi-line history here, the small multiple? Let me see if I can get rid of it.
Yeah, I like that. It's also something like that Grafana follows, like in their
It
dashboard.
I
It
think
can
this
get too
one,
busy though. You just got to be careful that it doesn't get too busy, I think. Hey, and I'm just
well, like I
asking
said,
because
we're going to have about we're going to have about 2 dozen things that are going to be, we can graph over time.
yeah.
So maybe we
And
need, what's there, 9 of them on here? So adding another 4, if you do a 16 by 16, wouldn't take up that much room. I think it's easier to read than this one, the middle one. The middle one
yeah.
is way too hard to read, I think.
That's what I was saying. That's getting too busy, right? And then you
Yeah,
kind of get a bit hypnotized as to what am I actually looking at. Like
yeah,
it's just crazy. Yeah, I like the one on the right. I agree. It's broken. It's microserviced. It's like,
yeah.
yeah. I
Okay,
also
well, I'm
like the
gonna,
histogram. The histogram's also nice. It's also very nice, the histogram.
yeah. Let's look back at histogram and see if they had a small version of histogram. No, they just had this double histogram. It does not look like they have that small version. I guess you could almost create it, but by taking a bunch of these and putting them tiny in a small box.
Mm.
Yeah, we can also use Matplotlib from Python, so it could be customizable. So it wouldn't be a problem.
Okay. Yeah, there's another graphic library you.
So Steve, actually, off what Elizabeth said, that makes sense. So if we're using Go for everything, does this type of thing need to be written in Go?
This will be on the front end side, so it would be
Would that
probably
is that the
JavaScript.
Next.js thing? JavaScript. Okay.
And
Yeah.
does our data is correct, or we have to like filter or clean the data?
Yeah, so you have the back end would be either Go or Python, providing the data to the front end to do the rendering.
Yeah, we could use JavaScript with a Python script just to pull
Can
out
you?
the data, or even
Oh,
JSON if
cool.
necessary.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
Usually
cool.
you end up feeding JSON to these things. You just create it
So is
correctly.
JSON the glue between the two languages?
Basically, yeah.
Okay, so we get some JSON glue and we stick Java with Python.
Yeah.
Okay, nice.
Um,
Who's doing the front end?
I'm going to start working on that. I got some other.
You and Elizabeth.
So these are interesting too. For
Uh,
the percentages.
I have a doubt.
Yeah, that's cool.
Oh yeah.
Uh, yeah, like we have the Ortelius dashboards. A company comes or an individual comes and he listed his microservice in Ortelius dashboard. Then we will show the graph of that microservice, right?
Yeah.
So for we need that graph, we need that input for like doing all the stuff. So we don't have any data. We will do it when we got the other microservice in our application.
Yeah. Well, here's a time
Oh, this is a
series.
cool one, eh? This billboard. What's this?
Got it. Thanks.
Naver.github.io.
Yeah,
Oh,
Billboard JS.
jeez, this is cool. There's so many
Now this
amazing
one's
libraries out
interesting
there.
because I've looked at this one before
How do we
because
know? Oh, sorry, double
it
check.
allows you to see over time. So the time series is on the bottom, and how well you're doing is the size of the bubble and the height of it. So this one allows you to overlap multiple things pretty easily. But I still like that other one where it had the line charts, the small line charts in the different on their own charts, but that way.
It's probably not humorous to have your bubble pop. Like, that wouldn't be a very cool thing. You're so bad. Your infrastructure, well, I don't know, wow. Your infrastructure is so bad that your bubble popped, so you really got some serious problems.
Click it through the
Very true.
CLI.
Is that all? That's the code on the side, right? So that's what you need to add to your code.
Yeah. So here this is basically the JSON code. So they've just hard coded the JSON data. But like this would be basically your microservice returns an array of objects. An easier one to think about is like the line chart. So you have your element, so like data one, and then these are through time. These are the y-axis. So they're pretty easy. Now there's some other code in here. So when you load it, it does this weird change in the display when you first load it. So you'll see like, let me go back to it, see if it does it. Yeah, there it went. So see how it's changing. That's based on these timeout functions where it's dynamically loading the data.
Is that like in real time almost?
Yeah, you could do real time with these. You just keep on reloading the data. So if you want to, we don't really have the need to do real time monitoring.
Yeah. On a cadence, right?
Yeah, ours is more, things change less frequently.
I suppose you could tie it into into KPIs and have your cadence. I don't know if KPIs is the right thing, but I don't know. You could have it tied into like a team maybe has a goal of getting their security over 6 months to a certain level, and you could have, I guess, something like that. Sorry, Alvin.
So we will do like the sync up in every 1 or 2 hours.
Yeah, what happens is the data from the workflows gets added to the database, and then when we come into the UI, we read the data from the database and populate the graphs. In order to get the latest data, they just have to do a page refresh manually. I mean, we could do an automated refresh, but our data is not going to change that often. I mean, we could if you left the GUI up and you wanted to have it refresh every hour, you could do something like that. But most people wouldn't be. They come in here, get the information they want, and then leave. Typically.
I was trying to think like these things. This data is so cool, and you could use it in so many ways to motivate your employees in your company, right? It's like, hey, well done, guys. Instead of, you could really use this to say, hey, you secured the company by X, Y, Z, right? And I think it's a good motivator, right, for engineers and all around. I think a lot of this data gets lost into some massive report somewhere where you only need a few things, right?
Yeah, and that would be let me write that down so I don't forget it.
For example, like if you take FinOps, for example, hey, because you guys, I don't know, streamlined your resources in AWS or GCP or whatever it might be, you save the company $50,000, right?
Right.
Or you could have something like, because you guys shaved down these CVEs or patch this, I don't know, you made the company more, I don't know how you put a value to that though. That's the thing.
Well, what you're kind of alluding to is the gamification of for projects.
Yeah. So
So
like
maybe
this team, oh, sorry. So like maybe there's there's normally in companies lots of applications, right? But they've got their own repos, and then each team sets a goal to like, hey, we've got 100 I don't know, let's say various CVEs, various sorts of vulnerabilities, and we want to shave that down now in our code to this, right? I suppose you could do it that way, and they because everyone will be different depending on the application, obviously, and people could be like, could show, hey, we were able to do this. Almost, yeah, like gamification. I guess it is. It's like, you don't have to compete, but you can just say, like, unless you want to be competitive, I'm competitive. I like winning. No, I really like losing.
so what they kind of alludes to is that we would need a way to allow users to set goals.
Yeah.
So we would need to be just kind of like we're talking about like the risk and stuff like that, how to set risk
Yeah.
and
Oh, that's cool. Risk. Yeah. Like you lowered the risk for this application by 50%.
Yeah.
That's cool. And then it's not about how many, it's about the risk level. That's cool. I like that. Because I always think that a lot of this research, if you think about it, universities, like all the amazing brains that are doing incredible things there, and then they write all these amazing PhDs and all these amazing, but it never gets to the people like me, right? I'm like, I'll never read it. So there must be a way to surface, I'm just using it as an example, to surface this information such a way that the everyday person or, can make a difference or show the difference that they're making to the business, right?
Yeah.
Otherwise, it loses the human factor and it just becomes like another tool. And I think that's the problem with a lot of these tools. We need to glue the people together, not just the JSON gluing the Java and what was the other one? Python. Yeah. Because at the end of the day,
Yeah,
this is
that's
for
right.
people, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
At the
that's
end of the
right.
day, it's for people. So,
That's the
yeah, I don't know.
basis of data visualization, actually. So what
Yeah,
we're doing here
exactly.
is just combining human-computer interaction with gamification
Yeah.
techniques, the user
Yeah,
experience, the dev
exactly.
experience, and we are still pursuing KPIs. We are just giving it the actual meaning to engage with the people.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Exactly that. Otherwise, what are we here for, right? In the end of the day, it's got to benefit the everyday person, right? Make their job easier.
Yeah, makes sense because we also have to educate people to understand
Yeah.
what value they're bringing, what's the difference.
Yeah. So what? The person patches something and then they're like, so what? I patched this, but no one knows about it, right? Or this team achieved this. So what? No one knows about it. But if you can surface that information to your leaders, especially your higher ups in the business, they don't have it doesn't mean anything to them, right? But if you can show, hey, this group of people did X, Y, Z in your company, like
Well,
50% reduction of risk.
the interesting part on that is, let's say we have a team that's doing really well, that they're meeting all their KPIs.
Yeah.
What and how can we take what they've done and apply it to what the other teams are need to do?
Yeah.
So, I mean, we've talked about down the road using AI to do that, generative AI, to take what a good team's doing and apply it to other teams to make their life faster.
Yeah. And then you could have like an overall technology side of the business health meter, right? Like, like they have at construction sites. We only had one accident today. Well, okay, that's quite relative because that guy could have fallen off the fifth story, right? And he died. But, still, you could have like that construction site type of idea where we say we only had 5 injuries this month and the next month they only had 2, right? Stuff like that. I don't know what an injury would be in this case. We have 20 CVEs, that would be an injury, and next month we only had 10, right?
Yeah.
Because I also find sometimes, a lot of people in a company who are shy, right? Like their personality is introverted, just and they can't. How do you show that? Give that person a chance to show how they're contributing, right? They're not the guy who's going to stand in front of the crowd or make a noise. Probably like me, I'm actually an introvert, but I don't know how I somehow make a noise a lot. But anyway,
Data
but you know what I mean?
storytelling.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. How do you surface that person's contribution, right? Like, how do you service some, not everybody likes to be
Right.
front and center, right? But they're geniuses, right? And they're amazing people and they're contributing massively, but they sit quietly, right? Because that's just not their personality, right? It's not that they're weird or something.
I think it's one of the feature of a software developer that they are introverts.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe that's true. And
Because if
so
all become
I'm just trying to
extroverts,
think. I'm
they
just trying to
love
think
meeting. Yeah.
yeah. Your dashboard is your interaction, your human interaction. I mean, every time you go to a meeting, someone brings up a PowerPoint slide or some sort of dashboard, right? How do we make that meaningful to everybody that's there, right? Because generally it's cross-pollination of teams, right?
Right.
So you've got like maybe you've got a product team mixing with a tech team. You've got the marketing team are generally like a bunch of crazies, you know, or the salespeople especially, you know, their mouths are just like, gee, you know, they're quite A-type, maybe, you know. How do you bring everyone together around a common goal? I know it's a hard one. I don't know. I'm just thinking out loud. Maybe I'm totally off the mark here.
No, it's actually a great idea, and it's something that it has been seen in industries.
Mm,
We could do a tracking for best practices within the
mm,
software development life cycle, and we can do that using Gen AI. We could
yeah.
even create a persona for the team that's working together, so that make it personal actually for them to
Yes,
engage.
exactly. That's cool. Exactly. Now
Um,
you're bringing in the person, right? It's not like this remote cold thing. It's actually something that brings engagement, right?
Does anybody know if they've introduced any like bots for Discord that are generative AI?
Jeez, that's a good question. I don't know.
You know, right now you can have a conversation with a bot, but it's kind of like pre-programmed and static. I wasn't sure
Yeah,
if
yeah.
somebody's created a bridge between like Discord and OpenAI.
I'm sure someone's done that. Come, Alvin, you should write something.
Yeah, because
we
Meta is also working on things like that.
There are
Mm.
some image generator bot already available, but I think we need something related to text.
So there is one out there.
Yeah, there
So
are
are you
some.
thinking, oh, sorry, Alvin. Are you thinking,
No, it's
Steve, of
okay.
using something like that to harvest the information in Ortelius?
Yeah, to have conversations.
Uh,
I shared one in the chat, but it's related to image.
Top GG bot.
Oh, for image, yeah. So
I
what I
am
was
image
thinking
channel.
was um, something along the lines of the best practices. Um, you know, something
Best.
like we've looked at your repository and your builds, and we found that you're meeting 5 out of the 10 best practices. Would you like to know more about the best practices that you're missing? And then they
Oh,
can have a
yeah.
conversation with the through the Discord channel with the AI bot to give them real answers and not just canned ones. Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
Not just canned. Yeah, that makes complete sense. Yeah. It's more, yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah.
You
Yeah,
know,
but it's
like
Actually,
because for different application, the AI bot will give different response. So we have to do the training part every time for every new application. So it will be costly for us.
not necessarily. because it just depends on where you put your best practices. That part where you'll have to train, but once you have your best practices loaded, um, then from there, you don't have to retrain every single time. You basically interact with that model.
Microsoft has models for auto AI that you can train for free practically for about 2 months with Fabric. So I actually have an active trial right now, so I might give it a go to see what we can do with that for the chat.
Yeah,
Yeah, that would be
the hard
cool.
part is going to be the the data for the models is going to be so small because your
Oh,
best practice.
sorry,
Good.
they have open data sets that we can create and bring to a data lake. So that
Synthetic
could help.
data, like synthetic data. Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, it's something
We
to think
also
about.
does we have that much data?
Well,
They have, yeah.
that's the thing with best practices around like DevOps and DevSecOps. It's pretty finite. It's a couple documents that are you got a couple PDFs that are under 3 meg.
Yeah,
If you
it's too
combine
small.
if you combine all the best practices for DevOps and DevSecOps and Salsa, it's a very small data set that you have on that side, but you need to compare what you're doing to that data set. So you have to gather what you're doing, where you have to train that data at that point. You have to comb through it and figure out what your current data is doing and how it matches up with the best practices.
Can we do
Mm.
something like uh, training it on the GitHub issues and the PR related to them?
Uh, I don't know if you could do that on so that would be to generate the best practices. Would be using the GitHub issues and stuff like that. I think you're just going to have to load in well-known best practices and go from there.
Yeah, I posted a link now. I met with these people. They're called mostly AI to generate synthetic data. So if we could feed it some synthetic sort of CVEs, we could build our own mock data set. If you know, like they do that with credit card companies, right? To test things, to test credit card data. You could do this. Couldn't you build synthetic security data that we would need for Ortelius?
I don't know if you
And you can run
can.
this on-prem,
Yeah, I'll
which
have a
is pretty
look at
cool.
this to see.
Sorry, I'm probably going right off course here, but I thought I would just share that.
Yeah, I'll take a look at this.
Yeah, it's actually nice. And we can get data from different sources and do data
Yeah,
augmentation if necessary.
yeah,
Because at the end, it's just about training the model.
exactly. So these
Well,
guys build,
uh,
yeah,
in a lot of our models, I ran into this with the CVE to MITRE pack. Those models are based on a similarity score.
yeah.
So how much in your CVE description is that similar to a MITRE technique? So what you have to do is you create vectors on both sides and then compare the vectors to see how similar things are. Because that's what you'd want to do is to take what somebody's doing currently and pair it with the best practice. So you have to see if they have what they're doing is similar to an existing best practice and give them a similarity score.
Is there
So it's going to
something
be
out
something
there?
along those lines.
Is there something out there like that already does this, that generates
Um,
synthetic data that Ortelius requires? Was that another
it
avenue of, I don't know, open source or revenue?
well, there is a Stanford NLP which has English models to that will turn like a paragraph into a score or a vector. So what ends up happening is, for example, you have dogs and cats. You're describing dogs and cats, and then and that's one side. So what will happen is in those models, it'll get rid of the plural, so it'll just be dog, cat. It'll drop the and then based on that, it would use those two terms to create the vector score. Now, also it'll add in based on its dictionary that a dog and a cat is an animal. So now you get a third entry in the vector about the animal. So now if somebody says my animal is sick or is not healthy, then it will map. You'll get a similarity score because somebody used animal in their question and match up to the similarity score because the vector on the other side has dog, cat, and animal in it. So the dictionaries are out there for the English language that are already pre-trained to help with that similarity score.
Okay.
Now that's different than generative AI. So that's machine learning to do similarity scoring, which I think is what we're talking about if somebody is doing a best practice. Now, yeah. Go ahead.
Sorry, how about that? So if that's for the data normalization part, we're talking about neural language, neural language processing for similarity scores using reinforcement learning then?
Correct. That would be the one side to determine. So it's kind of multi-step approach we would have to do. So one side would be to figure out how many best practices that you're currently meeting. Put it that way. So out of the 10 best practices, you're meeting 5 of the 10 best practices. The other one is I have out of those 5 that I'm missing, what do I need to do to change what I'm currently doing to implement the best practice? And that's on the generative AI side. So I'm going to give you my starting point of I have my Jenkins file. Go and I want to apply best practice number 2 to my Jenkins file. That's going to be the generative AI step to go ahead and implement it. And that's, Arvin, maybe where we go out to GitHub and grab all the Jenkins files that exist out there in the world that are successful, and then be able to that have that implemented, and then the generative AI can use that data set to figure out how it makes the coding changes to my Jenkins file. So that's the generative AI piece of it.
Steve, I posted the link for all the AI bots available.
Oh, you can also go to, I'll put another link in.
Oh, cool.
It's called
This board.
Oh, here we go. I call this the Google of AIs. Also this one. It's for like any bot you want. How do I post this thing? Let me put it in the room here. Darn, what have I done here?
Find it, Sasha?
There you go. There's an AI for that.com. It's like, I call it the Google of the search engine. The search engine of AI. Like it'll find any AI anywhere.
It's awesome.
It's cool. It's crazy. There's so many AIs. I didn't know there were so many until I started using this tool. Like you can literally find any AI out there in the world.
Cool.
I subscribe to the newsletter because they present some pretty amazing stuff that's happening out there.
Nice. I'll check that out. Well, I got to run off to another meeting.
Okay,
Thank
cool.
you, everybody. I think we got some good ideas. And we'll keep plugging along here.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All
Bye-bye.
right.
See ya.
See
Cheers,
ya.
everyone.